we did get some time to watch Baby Reindeer.
Yes.
Which you had been hinting. I don't know why you didn't just say we should watch that.
Well, the only reason I wanted to watch Baby Reindeer is because we watch Pierce every day, even though, like, I'd say 40 to maybe 20% of the stuff Pierce says, we're just like, are you serious? Why? What is wrong with you?
Pierce Morgan is a very complicated
He's a very complicated man. And I think he's so wrong on Baby Reindeer. But we have to back it up and let people know what Baby Reindeer is and why Pierce is obsessed with it.
So we're late to this, as we are with pretty much everything. But we're watching it now, damn it.
Baby Reindeer is on Netflix, and it's about the Scottish guy, a comedian, a rogue, a scoundrel, rascal kind of character.
Scoundrelly, yeah.
Scoundrelly, definitely. And he gets a stalker who's this heavy-set woman, and she's insane. Like, she's legitimately insane. And it says, this is a true story at the beginning. Yeah. And he plays himself in this dramatized thing. But obviously, because it's dramatized, it can't be 100% true. Right. That it just implies, like, names are changed, things are changed.
Yeah, they said that they did what they could to disguise the identity of the woman in question. But the show is, yes, it's about a stalker. But it really is about him being, like, dealing with all of his bullshit.
Which I like, because a lot of these shows, true crime shows, they really go into the psyche of the perpetrator. And so that person gets more attention than I think they deserve, and doesn't really go into the psyche of the victim. It just says, oh, victim, very one-dimensional. Yeah. But this really goes into what it takes out of you.
Well, that, but more importantly, it's about his, like, why he because when we were watching it, like, you see him enjoying the attention at first and throughout.
He's a failed stand-up comedian, so he has this thing where he needs attention.
Yes.
He's got this
he needs attention,
thing to him.
And even though this, like, horrible woman, who at first wasn't horrible, but
she was okay.
But even when she does become horrible, he can't help but kind of become obsessed with her back, and he really enjoys the attention.
Now, I wonder if this is the same as the advice they give to guys is go for the girl that likes you.
Yeah.
And like her back.
Right.
And whoever it is, like, you got a girl that likes you, find a way to like her back. Have you ever gotten that advice?
No, that's horrible advice.
What? Love the one you're with?
No. That's sort of like, look,
love the one you're with is like...
We've seen people in our lives do this, where it's like, you know this person is into you. You are not long-term into this person. Stop leading this person on. And that's kind of what he does in Baby Reindeer, is he sort of leads her on because he's enjoying the attention she's giving him.
Yeah, it was very irresponsible.
Yes, and the whole show might have been over. I mean, she is insane, so maybe she would have attached anyway. Yeah. But there was, like, in the show, and maybe in real life, weeks of him sort of reciprocating.
I think almost years.
Yeah.
Months and years. Well, because he's a bartender. And I used to work as a bartender and cocktail waitress.
It is part of the job.
College. Yeah, it is part of the job. But he didn't have to give her free Diet Coke.
Right.
And so that kept bringing her in, because she never drank. She just got Diet Coke. And he's like, yo, it's just a squirt. It's no big deal. And so he didn't charge her for it. And so she got that as I should keep coming in. And what I love about this character is that she doesn't acknowledge that she's 150 pounds overweight.
Right.
She never acknowledges it. You know what I mean? And so a person who, she acts like she's attractive the whole time. Like she's hot.
Yeah.
Which we never say out loud, but, like, there is an unwritten thing of, like, well, why is this guy talking to you? You know, right. It would be like, it's like the equivalent of a 70-year-old guy coming in and thinking, oh, this girl's into me.
Which happens a lot.
Which happens a lot.
And the stripper really likes me.
Yeah, the bartender really likes me. The bartender probably doesn't like you that much.
Yeah.
She probably tolerates you, and she might look forward to you coming in, but if she could be alone in her apartment, or him, this guy, alone in his apartment or doing his weird stand-up, he would be doing that.
Right.
They're still getting paid to be there. The barista is not in love with you.
Right. So the show is about his interaction with this stalker, but also him trying to make it as a writer and essentially getting by an older TV writer who said like, "Oh, you're gonna make it, kid. Come over to my house and do heroin with me." And then
Yeah.
So, but it's the same story. That's what they're parallels, right? Because he kept going back to that writer because that writer was giving him like fulfilling this whatever that
Can I
like
say
I'm making
something?
it as a writer.
Yeah.
But you're not. You're just getting
First
by this
off,
creepy old man. And then the show goes into like him after that questioning like, oh man, I think I'm gay now. Am I gay now? Relationship with a trans woman that he's like ashamed of. It deals with a lot of issues that are like topical.
definitely topical
And it's
issues.
sort of like the show definitely tricked you into watching like a gay drama. Which
That's
is
true.
But it's really good.
It's good.
Which is fine.
But and here's another thing, and this is what I don't like about generally the entertainment industry, is how they label things LGBT or black or da 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 da, and you're like, well, I don't fall into this category. Maybe I shouldn't watch it. But that's not what it was about.
No, it wasn't at all.
So I'm glad we watched it. I'm glad it wasn't labeled, and I'm glad we didn't know that it was for, supposed to be a gay drama. Because here's the other thing, is they'll go ahead and they'll label Glory as a black show,
right?
A black movie,
and
but then they'll also label Empire, and it's like Glory and Empire are not the same
thing. Very
thing.
Different things.
Yeah. So Glory is a real piece of art, and we should watch it. And Empire is soap opera trash, which I watched way too much of before I was like, no, this is bad.
I think I had to be like, because we really gave it a shot.
Yeah.
Because Terrence Howard was in it.
Oh my God. Terrence Howard and his crazy ass.
This podcast is not getting into Terrence Howard.
Not this week.
But yeah, you're right. Like if they had marketed it as like a coming to terms with your sexuality show, which they could have.
I'm glad they didn't.
We probably wouldn't have watched it.
Absolutely not, because we don't want to hear about someone coming to terms with their sexuality.
I don't give a shit about that.
Just go do what you do.
Right. And what kept me from watching it though was it did seem like it was going to be a fairly surface level, like guy gets stalked by crazy woman, almost comedy. I thought it was a comedy.
Oh, it's like anti-comedy.
Well, his act is definitely anti-comedy. It's very dark comedy if it's comedy.
Yeah, no, this isn't.
It's
this
complex.
Isn't comedy.
The show is very complex. I very, very much recommend the show.
Yeah.
And then Piers Morgan comes in. So when the show is getting big,
it's the most streamed thing on Netflix, possibly.
They're saying this might be the most streamed thing ever on Netflix,
which is a big thing.
That's crazy.
Good for Netflix. They made something good finally.
Now, what they didn't do well is hide the identity of this woman who is the stalker of the show. In the show, apparently they didn't. So throughout the show, they're putting up text on the screen of like messages that she sent to him. And some people on the internet just put those into Google, and those were tweets.
Yeah, the actual tweets that she sent, which makes me think that it's actually truer to life.
Well, we haven't even gotten there yet. So,
okay.
So they were able to identify this woman right away, and obviously she was upset. And so she came forward and was furious. She chose to go on Piers Morgan for her first interview.
Go forward, but yeah, go on.
For her first interview about the show, and Piers being a whore. That's the problem with Piers Morgan.
All of them are media whores.
Of course.
There isn't a single successful person in the media that isn't a total whore.
Yeah, and it paid off because it is like the most watched interview.
Oh, he points out, we've been going and watching every Baby Reindeer Pierce segment, and as it accrues views, he'll be like, we're up to 11 million views now. Oh, 14 million views. Oh, look at how I have helped the conversation. He will insert himself into the middle of something like nobody else, and I'm here for it. I
guess I'm here for it too, because yeah, that's the thing. Piers Morgan does have nuanced views about stuff.
Yes.
Which is why I like him. And I don't agree with them.
Yeah.
We are completely at odds about COVID. We're completely at odds about many things.
Yeah.
But he has nuanced views that he will state and back up with whatever you can agree with him or disagree with him.
And he's
people, not on a party line, which is refreshing.
He has people on his show that he brings on and that just yell at him.
Yeah.
I'll just yell at him for half an hour. And I'm
He'll
like,
keep coming back.
yeah.
And it's great.
He's like, thank you very much.
That's the
See
kind
you
of
next week.
conversation that's fun to watch. Now, where you don't respect Pierce Morgan is because he'll do shit like this, where he'll bring on people who are not acting in good faith, clearly. So he may not be a party line person, but he will bring on party line people to say the party line thing, and
Yeah.
he'll disagree with them where they should be
Not
disagreed
always.
with, but not always.
Yeah, so he brings on the person who came out herself.
Yes.
So the real person's name is Fiona Harvey.
And she denies everything, and it's definitely
She's
a
lying.
worthwhile interview. If you have watched the show, go to Piers Morgan's YouTube. You can find the baby reindeer woman interview. It's fascinating.
Fiona Harvey.
Yes.
And I need to point this out about her. We were within a minute, and I was like, she's lying about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because she has crazy eyes.
Yes.
And I don't know what it is about crazy eyes, but you can spot them. There's a lot of cult followers who have them. A lot of people who are like almost high.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if I didn't know anything about this and I watched that interview, I'd be like, that woman uses something. But we know it's because she has a mental illness now.
Right. And you see her sort of trying to play the technicalities, right? She's like, in the show, it says I sent 41,000 emails. That's a lot of emails. I didn't send 41,000 emails. And then later in the interview, she's like, well, even if I did, blah, 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 blah. It's like, that's not what somebody who didn't says.
Yeah.
Number one.
If you sent 400 emails, I think you're insane.
Yeah, that's still insane.
Yeah.
Like, they may have inflated the number, whatever, but the real sticking point that they are making a very big deal is
they being Piers.
Piers. It started really
Piers.
with
It's Piers putting himself in the middle of something, just like it's the Royals.
Is that in the show, it claims that before the events of the show, she had been in jail for like 4 years for stalking and harassing.
Being a menace.
A
menace
lawyer.
to society,
The
but
wife-
in not the cool way.
Yeah.
The wife of an MP, this
The wife of a
lawyer.
politician.
Yeah.
And then
She worked for it briefly.
And then at the end of the show, it says that she went to jail for 9 months or something.
For stalking this man.
Yes. What it seems to be is that she never went to jail,
She never went to jail.
which they are now turning into a 130 million pound.
170 million pound, which is the exchange rate for the pound to the dollar. I'm not sure if it's still 2-1 or even that high because after
Probably
Brexit.
less now, but yeah.
If it's but 170 million pounds. They filed this in Los Angeles. I don't know if it's Los Angeles, but California court, not in England.
Right.
Netflix doubled down on this being true. They sent an executive to the English Parliament to testify on this. So they're really like, this is a true story.
Yes.
So for some reason, it has to be, if this isn't 100% true now,
Right.
then this woman, who is a psycho, will get 170 million pounds.
Because the interview with this woman, there's a couple of episodes or clips after that where they're just talking about the interview because that's what
Yeah,
Piers
'cause
does. It's
a lot
I've
of-
made news.
yeah.
I've made news on Piers Morgan.
Yeah, that's a totally different kind of British accent. He's posh. But they took what she had to say almost at face value. So unless they deliberately caught her in a lie, or unless Pierce deliberately caught her in a lie, he's like, well, everything else must be true.
Yeah.
But it's like a cockroach. If you see one, there's 10,000 more. You caught her in this lie,
Yeah.
it means she's saying a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
That is probably a lie, and you just don't have the evidence for.
So yeah, a few clips later, Piers interviews the lawyer woman.
The first victim.
The first victim. of this
Not the
lady.
first victim. The first victim who went to the police.
Yeah.
Because she tells of more victims in the past.
Yeah. Now, if you find this interview, this woman, there's something about this woman you just go like, oh, this is a very serious.
Oh, she's telling the truth.
She's a very serious person.
Yeah, she doesn't want to be here. She's been dragged out here, but she's telling the truth.
Yeah.
And
The interview with Fiona, the woman from the show, it is so clear that she loves this.
there's something about how quickly she answers and the excitement she has and all this stuff that you're like,
And he's like, have you seen the show? She's like, no, I haven't seen it. She's seen that show 20 times.
yeah, it's layers of that mixed with just too much energy for something.
Mm-hmm.
And then the crazy eyes, which
Sure.
I can't put my finger on, but everybody has seen them. And it's the difference. These crazy eyes are the difference of, can I borrow your phone? I need to make a call
Right.
to AAA. That person comes up to you and you're like, either I'm going to let you borrow my phone or not, based on something about their eyes.
Yeah. So the lawyer woman basically lays out, first of all, she says that no, when things resolved with this lady, that lady did not go to jail. The woman from the show didn't go to jail.
But she did go to the police, and she had to get the police to formally tell her to knock it off.
Yeah, which is why it was a huge news story.
Yes.
In the UK, in Scotland. And that's, again, how it was so easy to identify this woman as the real woman.
Because she had stalked in the past.
Because she had actually stalked. And it wasn't just stalking. It was that she had called CPS, Child Protective Services, or whatever they call it over there in bizarro Scotland land, on this woman and claimed she was abusing her deaf son and like
her
was trying
disabled
to get
son.
Her son
she
taken
has
away.
this severely disabled son, tried to get the son taken away. This woman also recalls another lawyer who came to her and said that Fiona Harvey had done the same thing to him.
Yeah.
So this is a pattern of behavior, of completely psychotic behavior. This is so far outside of the normal that I'm willing to give Netflix a pass on whether or not she went to prison, because she should have gone to prison.
Right, and that seems to be what when Piers brings on these lawyers, and you start to, it's so hard not to just be like, these come on, and they're like, well, technically, whatever. I'm trying to give some grace and be like, because when OJ died, the OJ trial kind of was revisited again, right? So Piers had on Jeffrey Toobin, who was caught masturbating on Zoom during COVID. And
CNN guy.
Very funny.
Yeah. He thinks he's better than people.
Right. But what kind of made his career, I think, was he wrote a book about the OJ verdict and trial. And he brought on, what's his name?
Alan Dershowitz,
who was part of the defense team.
Yeah.
Right? He was roasting up Jeffrey Toobin because Toobin's book completely misrepresented their case against the state. And it sort of gets into this, like, did he kill that woman? Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Did the state mess this up horribly?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You have to, if you're going to objectively tell the story, you have to tell the whole story. Where Toobin wanted to ignore the fact that the state messed up the prosecution and was like, this is a grave miscarriage of justice, without explaining why.
Well, it was. OJ was a big failure of justice.
Yes.
And a failure of our justice system.
Yes.
Because we have laws that are worded specifically so in certain ways. It's not like you take it to the wise king and the wise king decides what really happened.
Right.
It's not about what really happened. It's about what you can prove in a court of law according to the laws.
Yeah. So I'm trying not to see people like Alan Dershowitz as smarmy jerkheads and more as law nerds, right? Who are
which
like,
they have
like,
to be.
I have a lot of, like, I play very complex board games, right?
Yes.
Like, you could really get into the rules and like,
oh
that's
my God,
fun.
you sure do.
And that's fun. So I'm like, they're just doing that, but whereas like we might pass or fail the game, a murderer goes free or whatever.
Yeah,
they're
and
different.
It's because the law is more sacred. The law and the sanctity of the laws is more sacred than whether or not an individual is punished correctly for their crimes.
Right. That's of course, and I
so
I see that
you're gonna have some
too,
guilty people
right?
go free.
So it's hard not to see kind of both sides of that.
Yeah.
But in this case, where it seems Netflix really messed up, is they just didn't put in the two words, based on
a true story, and
a true story. They said explicitly, this is a true story.
Yeah, and at the end, they say that they've taken some liberties to dramatize it, which people who work in film or have ever seen a film understand that that's what you have to do.
Right.
This isn't a documentary, and they didn't present it as a documentary. They presented it as a drama show.
Right.
Based on, or that was a true story. And so they said at the end, we changed some things to make it more interesting. And this woman, Fiona Harvey, has put herself in the middle of this conversation publicly to say, I am the one that they're talking about, and I never went to prison, and therefore give me 170 million pounds.
And
however,
she's saying that, this has ruined her life, which obviously it has not.
I'm sure everybody in her life knows she's a psycho and avoids her like the plague.
She could have somebody write a book for her about this, and she would make a lot of money. This will probably end up being the best thing that ever happened to her.
It absolutely is the best thing that ever happened to her.
Yeah, when she's on Piers talking about like, oh, my job as a lawyer, and when I was running for MP or whatever. Like,
yeah, and my hot boyfriend that I didn't bring. You don't have a hot boyfriend.
Girl.
It's your girlfriend in Canada? Sure. Sure. I'm sure he exists. That's crazy. No, I don't think it could have ruined her life, because I think a person like this who can't hold a job for more than 2 weeks without alienating the person who employed her and everyone that person knows.
Yeah, because that lawyer actually, she was working for the lawyer for a time, and the lawyer goes into great detail about how she found Fiona Harvey.
Fiona
and
Harvey
why
weaseled
she
her way into her
hired
life.
And it was very much like a sad sap. Nobody will give me a shot. I'm in law school or whatever. So she hired her on as like an assistant.
She took pity on her.
Yeah,
To
and
give her an internship.
like an office assistant or whatever, basically.
It was like her internship that she needed to get apprenticeship so that she could become a full lawyer. It's different in Scotland than it is here.
And she's like, yeah, she was a menace. She would like scream at people. She was
Antisocial.
Yeah, she was like a psychopath, and I had to get rid of her. And I think everybody has encountered people like that. And kind of get maybe not to
Few
that
and far
extreme,
between.
but
Yeah.
But the other thing Netflix really messed up on is it would have been so easy to just change the specifics of some of these texts. They could have made her not Scottish. That's like a huge.
But he was
thing.
Scottish, and it's part of the plot.
It's a bit part of the plot, but it's not a big enough part of the plot that they couldn't have
No, because then there's different dynamics. We're not from there, so we don't understand. But if they just make her Irish,
yeah, they're all from over there. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, we just think it's
people.
all the freaking all these. But they went to war, and there was Braveheart and shit. Like they got a lot of history that we should just accept.
You're right. There was Braveheart. I forgot.
Yeah, people forget about the movie Braveheart.
Okay, but they could have changed certain things because they were able to find her immediately, and they really did nothing to hide who she really was, which we're sort of saying, good, fuck this lady. If it was so easy to find her, like you're saying, to your point, like that just kind of shows that everything he's saying is mostly true, mostly true enough.
Mostly true enough. And now Pierce has had, I think, 8 different segments. Like these are long, and he'll bring these people.
He'll
in
milk
to
a
talk
story. If this is the most popular thing, which we couldn't believe before we watched the show, before we got what this was, we're like, why? Who is this lady?
Yeah.
And why are people talking about this show? But it was getting more views than anything else.
Yeah. So we're like, oh, okay, well we have to watch it just to watch it. And so now he has really doubled down on she didn't go to prison, so she has been defamed. He called her a troll and not a stalker. Mm-hmm. Now I don't know how, as a man with 4 kids, he can look at someone who tried to get someone's children taken away, someone's disabled children, and given to the state so that they can screw up raising them. Like she really tried to do some evil things.
Yeah.
So that's not a troll. That is a person who should be sectioned.
Yeah.
So that's a level of evil. So when I see that she didn't go to prison, so what? She should have gone to prison.
Right.
And what I'm hoping for is that Netflix takes the bait. I hope the statute of limitations aren't over. I hope she is charged with all of this shit.
That would be funny.
And she goes to prison.
It's so hard not to assume that there is some play here by Netflix, because this is such, if everything's just happening as it seems, face value.
Yeah.
This is a huge fuck up by Netflix.
Yeah, because now they've put themselves in the realm of the law nerds.
Right.
Who are saying, well, this could affect art. This is not going to affect art.
Yeah.
The most this will do is that every show from now on says based on a true story.
Right.
No one says
they
this is a true story.
They messed up really bad.
It's like, this is a technicality.
Yeah.
You have made a technicality which people should have known about, and they didn't. Yeah. And they're trying to make themselves seem more important. Like you're not just some blood-sucking lawyer who wants a new yacht. You're trying to help society. You're not trying to help society, sir.
No.
You're trying to make more money.
On a technicality.
Yeah.
For this horrible woman.
This truly evil person.
Yeah.
And I don't use that enough, but when men are evil, they're very violent. When women are evil, they do shit like this. They try to ruin your life.
And watching Piers and these blood-sucking lawyers talk about the show, they're like, Piers keeps saying throughout these interviews, in the show, he admits to this drug use. How is he a reliable conveyor of the truth? And then the lawyers talk about it he admits to, over her photo. These are just vile things in the show. And I'm like, you're not getting the point of the show. That's the point of the show. The show isn't really even about the stalking. The show is about how he responds to this negative attention as much as positive attention. It's about him. It actually is a deep show.
Yeah, well, it's his character arc.
Right.
And it's psychology.
It's just funny watching these robots try to watch art.
Yeah, because this is the managerial class. The managerial class is trying to insert itself into something important, which is a problem we're having across society.
Yeah.
They try to insert themselves into art, and they try to insert themselves into sport, and they try to insert themselves into places where it's the adults are doing something. We're doing something. You later figure out a way to make your money and make it go, make it palatable to the public.
Right.
But don't pretend you're doing anything of real value.
Yeah.
You are the managerial class. You are the admins at the school. You're not teaching the students. You are the blood-sucking class.
Right. And
stop centering yourselves on anything. I shouldn't know you exist.
Right.
You
Yeah,
are
why
supposed
on
to be
TV?
behind the scenes.
Right. But that's what Pierce does. He drags them up.
Yeah. Well, he also will drag up influencers who... Why is Tommy Lahren telling me about this?
Tommy Lahren shouldn't be on anything. We saw Tommy Lahren. Tommy Lahren is like one of those blonde, an aspiring, which is even worse, blonde Fox News host. Because Fox News, they got blonde big tits kind of out.
Yeah.
MSNBC has brunettes, glasses.
Yeah, it's what their demographics find to be the ideal woman.
But anyway, Tommy Lahren is an aspiring Fox News blonde.
Yes.
Who's
been around for at least since we started dating.
Because we saw her, we went to Politicon, I think it was like year 2 of us dating, and we saw her talking on a panel with like people who we respect, and she straight up just said like, I'm going to say anything if it gets me attention.
Yeah.
Because that's how you compete in this media environment. I'm like, how are you saying that out loud?
Yeah, and it's not like she was much younger than us. I don't think she's either our age or maybe older, so we knew, like, Tommy, you're a messed up human being.
Right. You're saying you will spread any kind of misinterpretation or lie that gets you attention.
Gets you personally attention. Right. You are a bad actor.
But
that is a bad actor.
That's the bad side of Pierce. It's the same thing. That he'll entertain anything if people are talking about it, which is where it gets really complicated in like journalism ethics. Like, should you be entertaining some things? Should he be entertained? Because there was that black woman on like the 3rd video we watched on all this who was just scolding him.
And we thought she was out of line.
But then by the end, I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, she's kind of right. Because what her point of view is like, Pierce, you know that this woman is awful. You know that this woman has lied to you. You know that this woman is a liar.
Yeah.
And you are entertaining the idea that she should get some compensation because this show wasn't fully true.
And basically, you're fueling her
defense.
Her defense in the public sphere.
Or her case or whatever, yeah.
In the public sphere. And you're convincing all of these people. So then Tommy Lahren comes on and gives the talking point that you can get from a bullet sheet without having watched the interviews with this woman, this Laura woman, this blonde woman who she harassed.
Yeah.
Once you watch that interview, there's no more moral discussion.
Right.
It's like, at this point...
The discussion should be, should this woman get a bunch of money because Netflix wasn't perfectly accurate?
Which they
what
say
is it worth? What is it worth that now people think that you've gone to prison? Because you did do all the stuff.
You should have gone to prison.
And that's what I was trying to get to is like, I really hope that this is the Netflix long play, or maybe they can spin it this way, is that they'll go through this whole thing. Maybe she'll win some money, but they will say that like this was to bring attention to the laws surrounding stalking and harassment. This woman should have gone to prison. You've heard everything she did, because in the court case, they can do everything they need to do to like put publicly how true was this story, which I imagine is going to include like 20,000 emails sent that she did attack.
It wasn't 41,000 though.
Right. And hopefully they can spin it and be like, now we need to do something about people like this. And like you said, maybe in some crazy
I would
lawyer
love it if
loophole,
she went to prison for this.
Lawyer loophole, like because this was all brought out publicly, that it like reset the statute of limitations or whatever, or maybe there is none, and she does end up going to jail for stuff because it finally
was in 2016.
does
Yeah, this was relatively recently. So yeah, I hope something like that happens. I don't think that there's a grand scheme of things. I think they did that for dramatic effect.
Yeah.
And now it turns out that perhaps they might have to answer for it, but they really shouldn't have to.
No. And what's come out since is that the guy who wrote it and starred in it, told Netflix like, this isn't a perfectly true story. Like, we shouldn't say this is a true story. But Netflix was like, no, this plays better if it's a true story. So we're going to call it a true story.
Because they've abused the based on a true story and inspired by a true story.
We talk about it all the time.
So much
Everything is inspired by a true story.
Everything is inspired by a true story. Everything is. Of course. Where did you get the idea?
Yeah.
Even if you got it from a dream, where did your dream subconscious get the idea? You got it from reality.
Godzilla versus King Kong, like
Yeah, there were
inspired
dinosaurs.
there are gorillas, and there was a nuclear attack on Japan, so
Yeah.
symbolically.
And dinosaurs exist.
Based on a true
Based on a no. That's inspired by a true story.
Right, not based on, inspired by.
Inspired by a true story.
Everything is inspired by a true story.
And things that are based on a true story, which they could have just put that.
They literally, that's all, because that's what it is.
Yeah. So this is something that Netflix forgot for a minute. Everyone else puts this.
I really hope. I think that it was. This is going to be the fault of like these middle managers.
Of course it is.
Yeah, they're obviously not. They're not artists. And again, this is a really good show.
Yeah, this is actual art.
This is art.
I'm glad that people are watching it. I'm glad it's the most streamed thing on Netflix because Netflix puts out a lot of trash.
Yes.
And we every single month we're like, we're going to cancel this subscription because they're using our money for just absolute garbage. The writing is horrible, and every month Netflix will do one thing that we're like, we'll keep it on for another month.
They backed up Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, they backed up Dave Chappelle. Like, oh, that bought you 3
important.
months.
Yeah.